Hello boys and girls, today we are going to fix our fill port leak. Got a leak coming out of the fill port? I'm going to show you how to do it. Let's get to it. First thing is, ignore this cool silencer. You'll see this pretty soon. That's a little teaser for you, those of you that are looking at it. Yeah, it's quiet. All we're going to need is the buttstock for this exercise. All right, let's rock and roll here. So I've already taken the time to degas it, but just in case you forget, right here, degas. Okay, tools you're going to need for this job is going to be a 2.5 millimeter hex wrench and a 4 millimeter hex wrench. We're going to degas it, wait for it all to come out. Next step we're going to do is we're going to take a fill probe and stick it in the fill port hole. And as I explained before, that's to keep this check sand from moving or rotating around so that we can always keep this lined up. Next step is going to be to remove your brace. This is a 4 millimeter wrench here. Like I said, for the sake of time, I have removed, pre-loosened everything, so it might take a little bit more time. Okay, so we're going to take that, put it to the side, take our arm, put it to the side. Next step is going to be, if all the air is out, we're going to loosen it. And as I described in my video, where I talked about putting the air tube in, this coupling may come out as all one piece, or it may be left behind. If it's left behind, it doesn't really matter for this one. Although I do recommend that you make sure that this is bottomed all the way out. Okay, so now that we have the air tube off, we don't need that. We're going to attack this little guy right here. This is going to be a 2.5 millimeter wrench, and we're going to unscrew this guy right here. And this is a 4x2. We're going to throw that away, put a new one on, place it on your wrench, or excuse me, on your screw here, put the wrench on here. And when we're going to put this back on, we're going to do just like I showed you a long time ago on your R3. We're going to go until it squishes and then a quarter turn back. How tight you turn this is going to determine how quickly your air gun fills. So we don't want to go over tight. We want to make sure too that we're able to pull this out so that this hasn't spun. Check the condition of our 18 by 2.5 O-ring. Now that we've fixed that, we're going to go ahead and screw our air tank back on. And remember that it is pressure with the O-ring that seals, not necessarily tightness. So we don't need to go super tight with this thing. Man, it put a lot of threads on this. And I suppose it is 300 bar. Okay. Okay, now that we get it tight, one of the things we want to do is make sure once we get it tight that this comes out smooth. And we're going to try to rotate this a little tiny bit. I can see it's off right there. That's how it should come out, so it's not dragging. Okay, now that we have that, I'm going to put our brace back on, 4 millimeter, back together. And now we can fill it. So I get this question a lot. Let's talk about O-rings for a second. Now that we got this filled, we can fill this back up, put this back on our gun, and go back to enjoying the most awesome air gun ever built. So let's talk about O-rings for a second here. Let me just grab a random one here. It doesn't matter the size. Okay, so when you guys go searching for O-rings, what you're going to find is it's going to have two measurements. Okay, so when you're ordering O-rings, I get this question a lot about how do you order them, what size. First of all, on an Edgun, all the durometer that you're going to pick is going to be 70. So there's like a 70 and a 90. 90 is a little harder, 70 is nice and pliable. You're going to pick Buna. That's the type of rubber. It's a synthetic black rubber. There is also Viton, but you don't really need to buy those because Buna 70 works just fine. And when you look at it, the O-ring is always measured on the ID, or the inside circle, and the cross-sectional thickness, or how thick it is. So when we pick an O-ring, you sometimes will see in online, it'll say 2.5 by 18, for example. So 2.5 by 18 means the cross-sectional thickness is going to be if you see 2.5 CS, that means cross-section, or the thickness of it. By 18 is the inside diameter. Okay, so that's like a quick little down and dirty way to choose your O-ring. So there's a lot of places online that sell them. They're very common. There's nothing special in these O-rings except that you're going to pick Buna 70. I will have O-ring kits eventually when I get some time to make it. But until then, you can go on my website under resources. That's edgunwest.com. Resources, and you can look up the schematic and find every O-ring that is needed in this Leshiy 2. So I hope that answers any questions. See you on the next video. Thanks.